The world is alive with constant distraction, a storm of voices and clamor that fills the mind and competes for the soul's attention. From the rush of daily schedules to the unending ping of notifications, one can feel overwhelmed by the sheer volume of noise pressing in from every direction. Yet, within this chaos, there remains a still, gentle voice, one that calls each person higher, inviting them to pause and listen deeply. To truly hear from heaven, one must first recognize the difference between outer noise and inner quiet. Silence is not merely the absence of sound, but an intentional space carved out for communion. It is in this sacred quiet that the spiritual ear can be tuned. By laying aside the anxieties and busyness that saturate daily life, the heart can begin to perceive the subtle guidance, comfort, and wisdom so freely offered. Creating an environment for this connection is an act of faith. Sometimes it means waking before dawn to sit in the gentle hush, or turning off the world's distractions for a few precious moments of focus. It might be as simple as walking in nature, letting the wind and the song of birds cleanse the mind's clutter. In these moments, the whisper of the divine grows clearer, reminding each person that they are seen, known, and deeply loved. Listening to this voice is not about striving or forcing something supernatural to happen. Rather, it is a posture of surrender, a willingness to quiet the soul and lean in. Facing doubts, fears, and unanswered questions is natural. But these are the very things that help one recognize the voice of heaven, speaking hope to uncertainty and bringing peace where there is restlessness. Life's clamor will always be present, but it doesn't have the final word. To be tuned to heaven is to develop a habit of listening, to trust that beneath all the noise, there is a source of truth that is steady, unwavering, and true. Every day presents a new invitation to push past distraction and hear the voice that has always been calling, waiting patiently to be known in the quietest depths of the heart. The invitation to hear from heaven often comes during uncertain seasons, moments when the soul aches for clarity or comfort. In these times, tuning in means embracing vulnerability and letting the longing within become a doorway to deeper intimacy. Each spiritual encounter, each moment of presence becomes a reminder that the Holy Spirit is more than a distant concept. It is the breath that connects spirit to spirit, surrounding hearts with peace that transcends understanding. Stories of spiritual breakthroughs frequently begin in the everyday, an ordinary place transformed by extraordinary awareness. A quiet whisper in the midst of chaos, a distinct prompting that brings reassurance, a sudden inspiration that fills the heart with hope. These are not accidents, but echoes of a loving God breaking through the noise, eager to reveal divine presence to anyone willing to listen. Sensitivity to this voice is cultivated through practice and trust, believing that in surrender, true guidance emerges. For the one who writes about spiritual experiences, these moments become sources of inspiration, fueling creativity and testimony. They are personal evidence that the Holy Spirit is alive, moving, and active, ready to intervene when called upon. The more frequently one surrenders distractions and tunes their ear to heaven, the more attuned they become to subtle leadings, a word of encouragement for a friend, a gentle check in the conscience, or a new vision for a season ahead. The process is ongoing. Every day offers fresh opportunities to practice this holy attentiveness. Even when doubts return or distractions seem overwhelming, the act of pausing, breathing deeply, and focusing on the ever-present Spirit can recalibrate the heart. In this way, spiritual experience is not reserved for the select few, but available to all who earnestly seek, listen, and respond. Ultimately, to be tuned to heaven is to cultivate a closeness that endures regardless of circumstance. The Holy Spirit is ready to communicate amid the commotion, bringing not only answers, but deep assurance that one is never truly alone, always accompanied, always loved. In this sacred exchange, the noise fades and the soul finds its true song. As you reflect on these spiritual experiences, you discover that the Holy Spirit often communicates through the paradox of simplicity and wonder. The grandest revelations are sometimes found in the quiet corners of everyday life, a warmth that spreads in the chest during prayer, a sudden clarity that dispels confusion, or an unexpected peace that settles over the soul in the midst of turmoil. These moments do not always announce themselves with dramatic signs, but often with gentle, unmistakable presence that reassures and leads forward. Inspiration gleaned from such encounters becomes your spiritual compass, guiding both your own journey and your words to others. Sharing these stories is an offering, a way to remind fellow seekers that spiritual connection is not remote or unattainable, but accessible, real, and often nearer than imagined. In writing, you bear witness to the subtle yet profound interventions of the Holy Spirit, weaving personal experience into narrative so others might recognize the voice of heaven in their own lives. Engaging with the Holy Spirit is a living, breathing collaboration marked both by waiting and by responding. Sometimes you listen attentively, expectant and still. Other times you step out in faith, trusting that the Spirit will guide even in the absence of full understanding. This rhythm of pause and action, of listening and moving, shapes a life tuned to heaven amid the world's noise. Each step deeper into this communion reveals new layers of trust and expectation, reinforcing the idea that spiritual reality is not confined to ancient texts or distant promises, but is present and active now. At times, the process feels slow or uncertain. Doubts may arise or distractions pull at your attention, but these are not failures, they are invitations to return, again and again, to the source of all peace and inspiration. The discipline of listening is a refining fire, one that sharpens discernment, calms anxieties, and confirms the reality of divine companionship. In the end, your writing becomes a testament to what it means to walk in faith, not as a spectator, but as one who has heard, responded, and continues to listen. The stories you share are not distant or abstract, but lived and felt, encouraging others to lean in, quiet their souls, and discover for themselves the reality of being tuned to heaven. As these reflections deepen, the Holy Spirit's activity begins to shape not only your inner world, but also your creative expression. There is a dynamic interplay between spiritual encounter and creative work when you write about spiritual experiences. You are not simply retelling events, but participating in a sacred dialogue. The insights and inspirations that arise in quiet moments become threads you weave into a larger narrative, one that serves as both a personal testimony and an invitation to others to explore their own encounters with the divine. The Holy Spirit moves in ways that are often subtle, speaking through impressions, intuitions, and the deep conviction in the heart. Sometimes as you write, you sense the Spirit breathing fresh meaning into your words, illuminating passages with a clarity and depth that surprises you. You realize that spiritual writing is not just about recounting past experiences, but about capturing the ongoing movement of the Spirit within the present, allowing your words to become a living record of God's nearness and active voice. The process is both contemplative and practical. You learn to discern the difference between your own thoughts and the gentle promptings that call you higher, recognizing that the most resonant truths are often those that quietest the soul. As you develop this sensitivity, your writing becomes more than information. It carries the fragrance of encounter, the warmth of intimacy, and the hope of transformation. Every piece is an act of listening, a response to the Spirit's lead, and an offering to those who read with open hearts. You also discover that sharing these experiences is itself a ministry. The stories you tell, the moments of sudden clarity, the comfort in the dark, the unexplainable peace encourage others to seek, to pause, and to listen. In this way, your writing becomes a bridge, connecting your spiritual journey with those who long for the same sense of nearness and guidance. The Holy Spirit, ever present, uses these stories to fan the flames of faith in the hearts of readers, prompting them to believe that they too can hear and be heard. Ultimately, your writing grows out of a life tuned to heaven. It is a practice rooted in daily attentiveness, in small acts of obedience, and in trusting that every silence, every step, every word written in faith is an offering, a tribute to the ongoing conversation between Creator and created, between spirit and soul. In this pursuit, your work becomes not only a reflection of personal experience, but a living witness to the reality that heaven is always speaking, always listening, and always inviting those who will set aside the noise to truly hear. As you continue to write out of these vibrant spiritual encounters, it becomes clear that each word is written not just for yourself, but as a beacon for those seeking authentic connection with the Holy Spirit. The process is deeply personal, yet paradoxically, it is also universal. Your stories, even though rooted in your own life, echo longings and hopes shared by many who walk the path of faith. There is a sacred convergence between your journey and the collective experience of those who sense the Spirit's movement but yearn for the language to express it. In your writing, you are acutely aware that the Holy Spirit is not only the subject of your words, but also their source. As you surrender your craft to this partnership, you find that the most compelling passages often come not from sheer effort, but from moments of grace, instances when you step aside and allow the Spirit to breathe through your sentences, arranging words in ways that bring comfort, conviction, or challenge to others. You become a witness to the miracles of everyday life, where the Spirit's fingerprints are visible, sometimes in healing, sometimes in unexpected peace, and always in the deepening well of joy that springs up in the face of adversity. You know that stories of spiritual encounter need not be sensational to be powerful. Indeed, the most transformative moments often occur in the quiet, unseen spaces, a whispered prayer in the night, a gentle nudge toward forgiveness, a reassurance that surfaces amid doubt. These are the moments you seek to capture, not only to document your own path, but to remind readers that the Holy Spirit is not aloof or unapproachable, but intimately involved in the ordinary and the extraordinary alike. Your work becomes a living dialogue between the seen and unseen, between natural life and the sacred. As you describe how the Spirit moves, sometimes stirring creativity, sometimes bringing comfort, sometimes calling you to deeper surrender, you invite others to recognize these same rhythms in their own lives. The invitation is always open to pause, to listen, to risk trusting that the Spirit is as near as breath, as present as hope, as real as the stories you share. Through your writing, you offer a vision of spiritual experience that is both humble and expectant, rooted in reality yet open to mystery. Each word is a testimony to the possibility of being tuned to heaven, even when the noise of life is at its loudest. And in this way, your words help others believe and experience for themselves that the Holy Spirit is always speaking, always speaking, always listening, and always drawing hearts to a place of deeper encounter. As you move deeper into the practice of documenting your spiritual journey, you begin to notice how the Holy Spirit's touch resonates not only in your personal life, but also in the act of storytelling itself. Each experience you describe, whether a moment of clarity, an answered prayer, or a renewed sense of peace, becomes a living testament to the reality that spiritual life is not an abstract concept, but a dynamic daily invitation. This is the heart of your craft, to serve as a witness, not only to what you have encountered, but to what is possible for every seeker who dares to tune their heart to the divine frequency. In your writing, you often find yourself drawing from the well of these encounters, distilling not just emotions but the tangible sense of God's presence that has shaped your understanding of faith. You write not only about what you've seen or felt, but about what you've heard, the quiet voice that carries wisdom, comfort, and sometimes correction. This voice does not shout over the chaos of life. Instead, it waits patiently, ready to be perceived by those who have learned to listen beyond the noise. As you recount moments of direction, healing, or unexpected grace, you do so with the hope that your words might help others recognize the Holy Spirit's movement in their own stories. The creative process itself becomes an act of obedience. You open yourself to inspiration, believing that the Spirit can guide both your thoughts and your sentences. Sometimes this means waiting in silence for the right words or revising until a passage rings with spiritual truth. At other times, the words flow effortlessly, as if they are being written through you rather than simply by you. You come to see your writing as a sacred offering, poured out for others who seek assurance that their prayers are heard, their doubts are understood, and their hopes are not in vain. Sharing these experiences through your writing is not only an act of remembrance, but also one of encouragement. You know that stories of spiritual encounter can kindle faith in weary hearts, reminding readers that the Spirit's activity is not confined to the past or to dramatic moments, but is available in the quiet corners of everyday life. You write about the holy paradox that God's voice is both gentle and powerful, both intimate and universal, and you invite others to press into that mystery for themselves. Ultimately, your words are woven from the intersection of your own journey and the universal longing for connection with the divine. You are not merely an observer or a chronicler, but a participant in a grand, unfolding story, one where the Holy Spirit continues to speak, to heal, to guide, and to inspire. Through your stories, you offer a glimpse of what it means to be truly tuned to heaven, and in doing so, you echo the hope that every heart can discover the same reality. The Spirit is ever present, ever speaking, ever calling us to listen, especially amid the clamor of life. Like, comment, and subscribe.